Hi, welcome to another video. We're talking about college writing. I know you're probably wondering, why do we keep talking about college writing? Because this is your college writing class. I want to encourage you, keep up with your reading, keep up with those quizzes, keep up with your discussion board, keep up with your prayer time, your personal worship time. We want you to become the student that the Lord has called you to become. The college writing class is important because it's going to teach you some of the basic things that you're going to need to write papers for other classes, and writing is a really good way to think about things and to help you organize your thoughts. So what will we be talking about? Well, we're going to be talking specifically about adjectives and adverbs. You'll recall from past videos we looked at nouns, we looked at verbs, and we're going to be specifically looking at adjectives and adverbs. I'll give you some examples. We'll talk about them. The students in the next video that you see will show you some writing. So pay attention. I hope this is really helpful to you. So adjectives and adverbs fall under the larger umbrella that we call grammar. Adjectives and adverbs are parts of speech. We're first going to look at some adjective examples, then we're going to look at some adverb examples. Now, some of you are saying, oh, I know all about that, but some of you are like, man, I think I know what those are. And some of you are like, oh my goodness, I can't remember. It's been so long since I've taken a writing class. Well, I hope that I can answer all of your questions and encourage you to use good adjectives and to use good adverbs in your own writing at SUM, in your sermons, in grants that you're going to write for in the future. So let's get started on adjectives and adverbs. First of all, let's talk about adjectives. Adjectives are words that are parts of speech. They're very descriptive. For example, curly. Curly is an adjective that describes my hair. My noun is the name of a person, place, or thing. My hair is a thing. The adjective curly describes my hair. Adjectives are very descriptive words that are used in sentences. They modify the noun or they describe the noun. They can modify the pronoun as well. So adjectives can modify or describe nouns. Adjectives can modify or describe pronouns as well. Typically, but not always, typically an adjective will be in front of or will precede the noun or the pronoun that it's going to modify. Adjectives really help add meaning to messages when they're delivered in sentences by really helping the person that's reading the sentence to really visualize and really understand the specifics about the nouns or the pronouns that they're modifying. Adjectives really add richness to a sentence. So my hair is very curly, and yes, it's naturally curly. My grandfather had curly hair. I have curly hair. I think I get it from him. So talking about the curls in my hair, it's descriptive. It's adding richness to the sentence. So here I have a picture, and I've got two different sentences. Look at the difference between the sentences. The first sentence says, I see a boy and a girl. Okay, got noun, got a verb, got a period, capitalized. But look what happens in the second sentence that adds description, that adds richness, because we put in some adjectives that modify the nouns. I see a short boy and a tall girl. You've given more clarity and meaning to your sentence by simply using an adjective to add description to the noun that you're talking about. Here are some adjective examples. I'll first show you a sentence that doesn't have an adjective necessarily in it, and then I'll show you the adjective that's added, and look at the difference in the meaning of the sentence. Okay, here's the first one. The missionary had a puddle behind his hut. Okay, you can sort of picture a missionary's hut with a puddle behind it, but look what happens when I add adjectives. The impoverished missionary had a heart-shaped puddle behind his teeny but clean hut. Look at all these adjectives. He's impoverished. He's very, very poor. He has a heart-shaped puddle. His hut is very, very teeny, but it's clean. Look at what a difference that sentence helped you understand with those descriptive adjectives modifying the nouns. Here's another example. A baby cooed in the missionary's arms. Oh, that's so sweet. But watch what happens when I add an adjective. The orphaned baby cooed gently in the missionary's arms. Oh, it's not just a baby, it's an orphaned baby. So adjective, orphaned, describes what kind of baby is there. And isn't that a cute picture of the baby? Here's another adjective example. I've taken out the adjectives. People are afraid of airplanes. So it's not very descriptive. It's not giving me a lot of information, but look what happens when I add adjectives. Many people are afraid of airplanes because airplanes are often stuffy and cramped spaces. The adjectives, many, letting me know about the people, stuffy, describing the space, cramped, describing the space. Maybe you got a picture in your mind, like I've shown on the screen here. That man's legs are just mashed up in the seat behind him. I've used adjectives to add color and description to my sentence. Here's another one. We stayed on an island surrounded by water. Well, that's okay. But look at this. We stayed on a tropical island surrounded by shimmering water that kissed white beaches. Adjectives, tropical describes the island. Shimmering describes the water. White describes the beaches. When we use adjectives, we can add color and interest to our sentences. Let's move on and talk about adverbs. I made a little character here I called Adverb Man. He's not a real person. Adverb Man has a message for you. He says, I describe a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So adverbs can describe verbs, other adverbs, or even adjectives. They prayed quietly. That helps us understand how they were praying. She danced joyfully. That helps us understand what was the dancing like? It was joyful dancing. What was the prayer like? It was quiet prayer. Adverbs many times will have an ly added to the end. Not all adverbs have an ly, but if you see an ly, there's a good chance it's probably an adverb. So adverbs ask modifying verbs. They answer questions such as how, when, where, why, to what degree, to what extent, or quality or quantity. Adverbs that are modifying verbs will often answer these questions. So here are some adverb examples. Kiki prophesied boldly. Boldly is the adverb here. It's helping us understand how the prophecy was going. The prophecy was happening boldly. Here's another example. Max texted faster than Carmen texted. So we've got the word texted, our verb, but how is the texting happening? It's happening fast. Max is a fast texter. Now, listen, if you ever meet me, you'll find out I'm a very slow texter. Honestly, I cannot attend the event. Why can't she attend the event? Well, honestly, she's in prison. Here's another adverb example. The meeting went very badly. So here, very is modifying the word badly. We have an adverb modifying another adverb. Boy, the man in that picture looks like he's not having a good time at that meeting. I hope none of your church meetings go like that. Here's another adverb example. The bridge was fairly wide. So we're talking about it's wide, but how wide is it? Well, it's fairly wide. It makes it an adverb. Tomorrow, I will talk to our professor about the assignment, or you can talk today. Adverbs help us know when something's going to happen. When is the talk going to happen? Tomorrow or maybe today. Adverbs help us understand how or when or where or why. And we even sometimes have an adverb clause. Here's some examples. When you knocked at the front door, I must have been in the backyard. I must have been in the backyard when you knocked at the front door. After you find the keys, we can go to church. We can go to church after you find the keys. Well, let's listen in. We're going to have some students share some writing, and I hope that that is very helpful to you. Please pay attention, and maybe you'll learn some more things about adjectives and adverbs. I really do hope that it's very helpful. Hey, it's Dr. Friday back with Brenna and Becca, and we've just finished talking about adjectives and adverbs. We understand that adjectives are words that are describing nouns, and of course adverbs are words that are describing verbs, how a verb is doing something. So Becca, would you please share your screen? We're going to have Becca share her screen, and she's going to just read us a paragraph that she's got that she's thinking about putting together. And after Becca reads her chosen paragraph, then Brenna is going to just make some comments and some suggestions about, you know, you did a great job with this particular word, but if you put this adjective in, it would make your noun so much more colorful. Or if you chose this adverb, it could really help make the description of what you're talking about, your verb doing, do something. And then we'll switch and Brenna will share hers and we'll do the same thing. So Becca, go ahead. Thank you for sharing your paragraph with us. Go ahead and read us whichever part you want to.
Okay, my name is Becca Palin. I am 28 years old and currently reside in Diamond Springs, California. I grew up around the same area. As a child, I grew up in a strict Baptist church. Both of my parents were serving in multiple ministries at our church. This was the type of church where we took communion together on the first Sunday, and that same service was followed by the church-wide potluck. It was a fairly strict Baptist church where women were homemakers, never cut their hair, and dresses were never to be shorter than a few inches above the ankle. I was baptized around the age of 5, but other than a few commemorative photos, I have no recollection. On top of helping in ministry, my mother worked 2 jobs in retail to keep our family afloat, while my father was in construction. As his job wasn't very stable, my dad was with me a lot up until grade school. For a while, he was my best friend. We fished together, hunted together, and built things together. Everything was great until I was in grade school.
All right, so she's got a nice paragraph explaining some things. Brenna, as you were reading along, I'm sure that you saw some adjectives and some adverbs there. Why don't you go ahead and give Becca just some ideas where you might think that if she were to insert a different adjective to describe something, or insert a different adverb to describe what was happening, or just give her some pointers.
Okay, so she's taught right around the time she was talking about I was baptized around the age of 5. I really like honed in on that. I feel like that's a really young age to be baptized, and that to remember being baptized at the age of 5, I feel like you could use some like more descriptive words, like I would switch up the sentence and be like, around the time I was 5, I was baptized, right? So I would put it like that, and then be like, around 5 years old, I felt the Spirit and was baptized. And like, I don't know, I feel like her paper is really good, and I'm kind of pressing in, but there's something about when you give your own personal testimony that you want it to feel as impactful as possible. So you want to be less like you're writing a college paper and more like you're writing a sermon and being like, this is how I feel, and using a lot of adverbs and adjectives really give that feeling.
Definitely agree. I think one of the things that Becca might have been trying to say was that she was water baptized, but I don't know that Becca was actually born again at that time. So Becca, you might choose to use the word water baptized so that we are understanding what kind of baptized you were. And one other, just a teeny little thing that I noticed was that you said that you were Baptist. And Brenda, do you remember the adjective that she used to describe what kind of Baptist she was?
Strict Baptist.
She said that 2 times. She was like, we were strict. We were strict. Brenda, I wonder if there is another adjective besides the word strict that Becca might want to put into her paper as she's describing this denomination. Can you think of anything, Brenna?
I like the word staunch, mainly because it sounds like starch, and you have like that crisp clothing feeling to it. So being a staunch Baptist would be a good one.
That's a great adjective. Staunch Baptist or strict Baptist both help us understand from Becca's point of view how she was feeling about this particular denomination. And then the idea of putting the word water in front of the kind of baptism she was experiencing. That could help the reader. So that was good. You guys did great on that. We'll get Becca to stop sharing her screen and have Brenna share her screen. And then Becca's going to do the same thing for her. Brenna's going to read us a paragraph, and then Becca's going to look and give her some adjectives and adverbs that she could use to just make her work more colorful.
All right, so I'm going to go down to a portion where I'm talking about myself, because this is a book review. And the teacher wanted us to talk about ourselves near the end. So I honestly did like this book. I thought that Nelson had a lot of good points, and it felt reaffirming to read a book about something so dear to my heart. I thought that the tone he used in his writing was relaxing and even funny at some points, so it made it an easy read. I have never had an assigned book specifically about church planting, and finally being given some kind of material that I wanted to read was just so exciting. I ended up editing a lot of scripture quotes that he used. I also loved how he made lists and sections for the reader. It made it easier for me to follow along.
I can tell you were passionate about having this opportunity to do this book review. Becca, as you look at Brenna's paragraph, what are some different word choices, some different adjectives or adverbs that you might have suggested?
Sorry, I'm just rereading. So I think maybe
While you're thinking about
sorry.
it, I want to point out, while Brenna, I could tell that you were really passionate. When you were reading out loud, you almost ran out of breath because you wrote some really long sentences. And although we're not necessarily looking at how long sentences should be in this particular portion, this is a great example. You wrote how you talk. You just talk and talk and talk and talk, and you just let the spirit flow and you let it go. But when you were reading that, you had to pause because you didn't have enough air in there. So it's an important lesson for students to learn that are looking at this. If you are proofreading your paper and you're trying to add colorful adjectives and adverbs, if you find yourself gasping for breath because the sentence was so long, you may have a run-on sentence, which means we have two complete sentences that could be separated. And so that might be something that Becca might suggest, that really long sentence where you're trying to give us so much information that you might want to make that one just a little bit shorter. While we're here, Brenna, if you'll just scroll down just a little bit, I wanted to take a peek at your footnotes. If you can go to
I have footnotes up here.
Stop for just a second. Let me just point out, just because you're so sweet to share your paper, we need to indent the first line of every footnote. So you did that for the person's name, but not for the footnote numbers. You also put one space between each footnote. So as I'm looking at your footnotes, they're kind of all crunched up there together. You can stop sharing your screen. I appreciate that. You guys did a great job talking about adjectives, talking about adverbs, and then also helping other students to remember things that we have to do in Turabian. So students, pay attention to the next video. I hope that you enjoy it. Welcome back. We were just talking about this idea of adjectives and adverbs, and we were thinking about how to use them and how to use them well in our writing. And Professor Salas has prepared some information for the two of us to kind of look at together. So Professor Salas, what do you have for us?
Well, I have a couple statements here, a couple sentences. So I thought we could go through them and I try to identify the adjective in the sentence. Okay. And you'll notice, as you said in your learn segment, that adjectives are really a way to enrich the sentence. It makes the sentence a lot more interesting. So they're really important to have in our writing. So I'll start with the first one. The sentence is, they live in a beautiful house. Dr. Frady, could you identify the adjective here?
They live in a beautiful house. I think it's going to be beautiful because beautiful is describing what the house looks like. Am I right?
Absolutely. And you'll notice if you took it out, it would say they live in a house. That's somewhat boring. So, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to always use adjectives, but it's nice to have it there. The next one, he wore a colorful tie, very similar to the first one, Dr. Frady. What is the adjective here?
A colorful tie. Well, he's got a tie on and it's colorful. So I think colorful is probably the adjective that's describing tie. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next sentence is, he writes meaningless letters. Ooh, I wouldn't want a meaningless letter.
I want a romantic letter from my husband, or a romantic letter. Well, I only wrote a romantic letter from my husband. I wouldn't want a meaningless letter, which means meaningless is probably the adjective describing the kind of stinky letter that he was writing. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Meaningless means it's just void, nothing to it, nothing purposeful. So definitely that's describing the letters. And yes, we don't want to receive letters like that. The next sentence is, this building is cold and dreary.
Cold and dreary. I feel like that's a trick question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that dreary describes how the building feels, but cold, I wonder, because I can feel cold. I don't know. I'm going to go for dreary. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. There's actually two adjectives here. So cold and dreary.
Mm-hmm. One sentence. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Dr. Salas, I didn't even see that second one.
Absolutely. And it's a little bit different too, because in the previous sentences, we had the adjective come before the noun. And then we hear, we're using the noun is used in the beginning, and then the adjectives come later in the sentence. And that's definitely okay. So, she wore a beautiful gown to the ball.
Oh, I would love to wear a gown to a ball. You know, I've never been to a ball before. So
yeah, me either.
Really concentrate on this. She wore a beautiful gown to the ball. Well, it doesn't say if the ball was fancy or if the ball was at night, or she wore a beautiful. I think it's a beautiful. That's an adjective that's describing the word gown. Am I right?
Absolutely. The word beautiful. And that's one of my favorite words to use, but yeah, I have to come up with some new words to use. I use that word a lot. The next word is, Frankie is an adorable baby. Oh, babies.
Is an adorable baby. So Frankie is a baby and the baby looks adorable. I think adorable is the adjective describing how the baby looks. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. And we're going to skip the last one. I want to go into the little sample here. And I thought you and I could make, this is a really boring, well, somewhat boring paragraph. And I thought we could liven it up with some adjectives. What do you think about that?
Sure, let's do it.
So, okay, so the paragraph goes like this. The woman woke up every morning to enjoy a cup of coffee. She sat by the window and looked outside to enjoy the view. She often wrote in her journal about the events from the previous day. She also prayed to God for the needs of the moment and enjoyed how the Holy Spirit spoke to her through scripture. She was content with her life. How could we add, where's some places we can add some adjectives, Dr. Frady?
Let's see. The woman woke up every morning to enjoy a delicious cup of coffee.
I love that. Delicious. I would say delicious and strong cup of coffee. I need strong coffee.
Delicious and strong cup of coffee. She sat by the open window, or
I like that
window, or maybe it's a cracked window. Maybe she's very
ooh,
she has to have
like my window right now. I have it, it's open, just a crack. Yes, I love that.
And she often wrote in her journal. It could be a special kind of journal, maybe a pink journal, or it could be a big journal or a small journal.
And we could even say prayer journal, right? Because we could, it's a type. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
She prayed to God for the needs of the moment and enjoyed how the Holy Spirit spoke to her through the scripture. She also prayed to God maybe for the special needs.
Special needs. I like that.
The Holy Spirit spoke to her through the wonderful scriptures, the outstanding scriptures.
You could say divine scripture. We could say a couple things we could put there.
Yeah. She was content with her Christian life, or
Yes, Christian life.
lovely life, or her
Peaceful life.
peaceful, simple. All of those are great
All of
adjectives that would add color to this paragraph for
uh,
sure.
absolutely. And I know, like for me, Dr. Frady, when I'm writing, I tend to just get out the bare bones of what I'm writing. I don't often think of adjectives at the time, but as I continue to write, I'll begin to add when I go back to proofread and kind of build on what I already have. I would definitely start adding words, and that's a thesaurus. I think is a very great tool to use here to find words. Dr. Frady, let me ask you, how do I know, like growing up, I didn't have an extensive vocabulary, and I'm still building my vocabulary. How do you, some students might be a little bit intimidated to use some of those bigger words, some of those bigger adjectives. What do you recommend for that?
I think that one of the best ways to be a good writer is to be a good reader. And so I
Mm,
like to read books that I think might be a little bit too difficult for me to read. And then if I come across a word that I don't know how to pronounce, that's a pretty big clue that I don't know what the word is. And I'll actually do the old-fashioned thing of looking up in the dictionary to find out how to pronounce it, what it means, and how to use it in a sentence. That's helpful for me.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Those are great tips. Okay, the next thing we have here are adverbs. So I'll read some of these sentences and we can go through them together. Here's one. I thought the movie ended abruptly.
The movie ended, but how did it end? It ended abruptly. I think abruptly is the adverb describing how the movie ended.
Absolutely. And when we see the ly, it's typically, like Dr. Frady already mentioned, it's typically a clue that we're dealing with an adverb here. So that ly is a kind of a little tip for us. The next one is the beautifully painted landscape is a wonderful addition to my living room decor.
Okay, this is tricky for sure.
Definitely.
Painted describes the landscape, and painted is an adjective, but beautifully describes the painted, which is the adverb can describe an adjective. I think the adverb here is beautifully, and painted is an adjective, and landscape is a noun. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. You're good, because some of these, even for me, as I'm looking to them, you have to really focus. Okay, what's being described? Which words being described here? So very good, Dr. Frady. And the next one is Grandma's crystal vase is a priceless antique that must be handled delicately.
How must grandma's vase be handled? It must be handled delicately because of the ly. I'm almost sure of it.
The ly, and then you said a key word. You said how should it be handled, and that's one of the things we think about is when we learn the how of how something was done. I guess you could say how the verb here, then we're dealing with an adverb. So good job there. And then let's skip down a couple. Let's see here. Quickly finish the grocery shopping so we can get to the party in time.
Okay, I want to go to,
or I should say on time.
I want to get to that party. What do I need to do to get there? I need to quickly finish. So finish is something I have to do. How I do it is quickly. Quickly is the adverb.
Quickly is the adverb. Very good. And then I'm going to skip down here. This one right here is, I went upstairs to see my grandma who was on bed rest.
I went. Is it upstairs?
Upstairs, because it shows location here. So
the tricky one.
These are definitely trickier. So absolutely. And then the next one is, I almost stopped at McDonald's for lunch, but I was running late.
I think it's almost is the adverb.
Absolutely, almost. And lastly, Abdullah finished his test somewhat hastily. This is a little tricky too.
Somewhat hastily is the adverb because it's got that ly. Am I right?
Absolutely, hastily.
We did it. We made it through adverbs and adjectives.
Made it through.
And you guys can do it too, students. Keep up the good work.